this moment significant for the Roman Catholic Church. More ways than one, of course. It's a period of mourning, but it signals the start of the next step for the Roman Catholic Church. Pope Francis working diligently throughout his tenure as the head of the Roman Catholic Church, as his body is laid on the ground at St. Peter's Square. We're joined once again by anchor and correspondent Thomas Porteous. We will, of course, continue to show you these images, live images from St. Peter's Square. Thomas, this funeral process, what more can you tell us about what will be happening over the next few hours?
Yes, well, as you can see from the visuals on air, you can see that the Pope has been carried out in a simple wooden coffin. This was at the request personally of Pope Francis. This contrasts with previous popes who have traditionally been buried in 3 coffins. This simple wooden casket was asked by Pope Francis personally, because he would like to think of himself as a very humble man. He was very close to the poor. The Vatican is a very grand place. It's known for the Sistine Chapel and amazing pieces of art. However, Pope Francis, some believe that he was a very simple man who believed in simple things and being close to the poor. Hence, his decision that he made prior to his death of choosing this simple wooden casket instead of these 3 coffins that previous popes have been put in. He asked to be entombed in. These humble last wishes reflect who he was as a leader of the Catholic Church, the head of these 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide. He obviously stood up for the poor, unlike other popes have done previously. In regards to the day, the funeral will be headed by the Dean of the College of Cardinals, who is Giovanni Bastia Re. He's a 91-year-old Italian who was ordained for the Diocese of Brescia in 1957. In 2001, Pope John Paul II proclaimed him as cardinal. So he will be leading the funeral today. He participated in the conclave of 2005, now too old to be a part of the conclave, which is upcoming now. You've spoken about that previously. Only cardinals 80 and under can be a part of the decision-making process of that new pope. Obviously, today is focused on Pope Francis and his passing. It would be an amazing ceremony. But one cannot help and look at the future of it, the exciting future of that conclave that's going to come about in just a few days' time.
Yes, Thomas, thank you for joining us. Just to give you an update on what it is that you are seeing right now on screen. This is St. Peter's Square, where the service to start Pope Francis's funeral proceedings is taking place. Expected to take around an hour and a half. The Pope's body has now been put inside the coffin in place, just the other side of the plinth that you're seeing on the screen. On the right hand side, cardinals and bishops dressed in red. On the opposite side, world leaders, dignitaries, also, of course, heads of state ahead of this process starting. Thomas Porteous, I'll bring you back in while we're seeing those images. Actually, apologies, we do have some more updates on the final moments before this process got underway. Prince William attended the Pope's funeral at the Vatican on behalf of King Charles. When he was inside the St. Peter's Basilica, he was seen bowing his head in a solemn gesture of respect. Representing the British monarchy, William joins world leaders in honouring the late pontiff's legacy during this moving ceremony. Thomas Porteous, I will bring you back in. While we look at these images as the service is almost ready to get underway, What can you tell us about the final moments of Pope Francis's life? Of course, he's taken part in the Easter Sunday service, one of his last moments alive.
Well, as you have said previously, Joshua, the Pope obviously passed away on Easter Monday, with making a final public appearance on that Sunday beforehand, where he appeared in St. Peter's Square to give a speech to the crowd on one of the most important days of the Christian calendar, and then sadly died of complications the next day with his respiratory issues that he was facing previously. We know that the Pope had a long stint in Rome's Gemelli Hospital. He was then discharged a couple of weeks before his death, which we now know was the eventual cause. He was obviously bound to a wheelchair and not very well for many years until his death. But obviously today is about saying goodbye to Pope Francis. All world leaders from around the globe are gathering to pay their respects, including Donald Trump, former President Joe Biden. You've seen the Trumps there. Donald Trump is wearing a black tie. Melania is wearing a sort of black veil to pay their respects to the pontiff, who was 88 years old at his time of death. And the ceremony has obviously opened, and they're now hearing the entrance antiphon, which is a selection of psalms verses or scripture passages that are traditionally sung or recited, and we will be seeing that very, very shortly at the start of this 1.5 hour service that everyone around the world is watching.
Absolutely, everybody within St. Peter's Square currently standing, hearing those verses and scripture passages as this service gets underway. Thomas rightfully saying there, we expect this to last around 1 hour and 30 minutes, and then the Pope's body will be moved